All right. So me and Jake just watched Kansas and UNC, and that was probably one of the most exciting prospect matchups that we've had here early. And just the first week of basketball here too. Um, UNC ended up running away with it. I forgot the final score, but the second half wasn't ugly or wasn't pretty for Kansas. All in all, though, it was a great prospect showing from Darryn, even though they got the loss, but Caleb Wilson especially. I'm interested to hear from you, Jake. Like, what really jumped out from you?
Yeah, I mean, starting with Caleb Wilson, it was evident throughout the entire night that he's maybe the best two-way player in this draft. He scored over 20 points again, but the defense and I feel like the intensity and the fire that he was playing with all night long was so fun to watch. And I feel like that really ignited his team, especially in the second half where UNC's offense started to take off. They were hitting a lot of threes, they were getting in transition, and a lot of that was a result of Caleb Wilson's hustle on the glass. I mean, he's diving for loose balls, he's doing everything. So it was a really impressive showing.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, you talked about it, just the motor. Like, I think one of the things that my basketball coaches always talked about is how much defense is really just an effort thing, and like if you want to be good at it, you can be good at it. And but there's something to say when you're 6'10" and have the freakish athleticism that Caleb Wilson does, and he was going out there and producing. I mean, the blocks, the steals. Yeah, it was just all around a good performance. But on the offensive side too, I think is where you really saw some promise, because I know like coming into the year, it was kind of a question mark of like the UNC has always had the kind of narrative, and rightfully so, but they've kind of had the narrative that they don't always let their prospects live up to their full potential. But I feel like for Caleb, you know, he's going to have the chance to really go out there and just kind of show off a lot of his game. And I think there's still a question mark around some of the offensive tools and what they'll look like maybe at the NBA level, but I feel like it's good that he's just out there showing what he can do now. I mean, the fadeaways, they were letting him bring the ball up, attack, get downhill. Like, there really was just a lot to like.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the actions that he was getting involved with, they used him a ton at the top of the arc. It wasn't like, the traditional four-man in college basketball where they just kind of stick him on the block and have him back down the defender. I mean, he showed the ability to do that sometimes. You mentioned some of the fadeaway jumpers from the mid-range that looked really, really good. His elevation going over the top of the outstretched hands to hit those jumpers was really impressive. But I feel like his ability to play make, and he had a few assists tonight that were really, really good as kind of a connecting piece, switching it from the weak side to the strong side or vice versa. So I feel like that aspect of it was something that I personally wasn't super aware of. But on a showcase like tonight against one of the best teams in the country, to do that on this stage, it almost was Draymond Green like, I guess you could say. I feel like that is kind of the comp I'm looking at right now for Caleb Wilson, like a more athletic and a more offensive minded Draymond Green type player that's going to go out there and give 100% on defense every single night. And if he can start hitting some jump shots, I mean, what is the ceiling for a guy like Caleb Wilson?
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. Like, just the jumper, I think that is really what's gonna determine like what kind of can, I guess, how much of the offensive tool set can really be maximized. Because if he doesn't have that jumper, like, I think a lot of the gravity that he could create, the extra gravity and opportunities that he could create off of it won't be there. But like you talked about it, even with the passing ability and stuff, I think that still gives him a really, really high floor, I feel like, just offensively, because you saw it even a little bit in, I know you talked about how you weren't really aware of it, but like even in like EYBL and stuff, I think I actually saw him in person when he played with Cam Boozer and Caden Boozer, that team, and like he was a really good uh like, I guess, what's the term, like secondary option in terms of just finding Cam in his spots, and like just making plays and big to big passes. And I think we saw today, like even when he gets out on the perimeter, like he's tall enough and he has the vision to like really just find the scoring opportunity, whenever it's present.
And his scoring was really impressive, but it wasn't like he was doing it the same way that Darryn Peterson, who we'll talk about in a minute from this game, because uh, Caleb didn't even shoot it. I think he shot it less than 15 times total in the game and still finished with over 20 points. I mean, he's doing it within the flow of the offense. He's grabbing second chance points. I mean, maybe the biggest highlight of the night came on like the first bucket when he had that putback dunk over the top of your guy's starting center. So, like, that was kind of the almost emblematic of what we were going to see from Caleb Wilson the rest of the night, which was just high energy, igniting the crowd with highlight plays and doing it on both ends of the floor. You couldn't be more impressed, I feel like, with what we saw from Caleb Wilson.
Yeah. Like, and I'm interested to see kind of how it looks as the season goes on, because I know we talked about the jumper and stuff too, but I'm, and like, one thing I did want to see a little bit more of is like when he was bringing the ball up the floor and like attacking on, from the top of the key, there were moments where I was kind of like, okay, maybe when he's kind of like, there's a little bit more structure in the play and he's coming off of an action and not just attacking the defense. The only reason I point that out is because, like, I think there was one play where Darryn Peterson, like, kind of poked the ball away from him. And then there was another time where he kind of lost his dribble. So that's something I would kind of like to see him clean up a little bit on that end. But overall, like, the energy, the tenacity, the defense, like, the freshmen are continuing to deliver, and we haven't even gotten into Darryn Peterson on the other side of the ball, like, or on the other side of the, yeah, like, I know they lost, and for Kansas, I feel like the name of the game, it really just came down to things that can be cleaned up. I think they were a little bit undersized again and from the front court, but for Peterson individually, I feel like he kind of did everything that he could. Maybe there was some stuff he could have cleaned up defensively, but like offensively, he was getting downhill, coming off screens, coming off ball screens, coming off, plays where, maybe they're setting pin downs for him. Like, he kind of showed how he can score in a variety of different ways. Now, he did get into some foul trouble early, and I think that kind of opened the gate for, runs are going to happen in basketball, but I think that kind of opened the gate for UNC to kind of steal back some of the momentum early, and those runs matter. But yeah, I think I really liked what I saw out of Peterson here too. And it's kind of crazy because he's gonna have like, he had 22, but it didn't feel like a loud 22.
Yeah, he wasn't really shooting as many threes that we saw in the exhibitions and even against Green Bay earlier this opening week of college basketball. But he was doing it at all three levels still. He still had a couple threes, I think, late in the game. He had a couple deep ones, but he was getting fouled a ton. Finishing and ones. He got fouled on a tough long two that he made the jump shot on. So, like, if it wasn't for how impressive Caleb Wilson was tonight, I still feel like the main headline from this game would be how much Darryn Peterson really carried the offensive load for Kansas on a night where they didn't really get much else from any of the other players. I know that's kind of the storyline for Kansas most of the season, as we're expecting. What are they going to be able to produce without Darryn Peterson on the floor? And like you mentioned, when he went out in foul trouble, those were some rough first half minutes. They just couldn't get any sets to go their way, and there was just not really an alpha on the floor to work with.
Yeah. Now, I know we're talking about Darryn, but I do want to give a shout out to Bryson Tiller, because I think he was their, let me look at the stats real quick, but I believe he was their only other player outside of Trey Wright and Darryn Peterson that finished in double digits. But again, he also got into some foul trouble early, but like, he's a prospect who I'm kind of keeping my eye on, just because he does so many different things. But like, the floor stretching, I think, is going to be really big. He had 4 threes, and he's just an all around, I think, just a playmaker offensively and defensively. But yeah, I think for Kansas, it's just like, outside of Darryn, what is going to be the answer? And I'm bringing that up because I think, you look at a lot of these other teams that, like, let's look at BYU and Duke, for instance, the two guys he's kind of being compared with. I think Darryn is just going to have to do more on a nightly basis if, this team wants to be competitive and win games. And like, I think you kind of even saw it a little bit at the end of the game today where, he was getting ready to take over, but it was just so far, out of the game was so far out of control at that moment that there wasn't really much he could do,
Yeah, and I feel like with all the foul trouble that a guy like Bryson Tiller was dealing with, he had 12 points, like you mentioned, but all of it came in the first half. I mean, he was shooting it super well from three. It was almost Miles Turner-esque, I would say, from this past playoff run for Indiana, the way that he could defend the rim, be physical as a presence at the five, but also step out to the three-point line and space the floor. That's what, Kansas and Kansas fans has to be looking for and excited about the rest of the season. But yeah, like you say, I mean, among the kind of projected top three at this point in the season, Cam and AJ DeBonta have a lot more talent, at least from what we've seen so far, that they can rely upon for when they need 3 or 4 minutes on the bench to catch their breath, or if they're dealing with foul trouble, they can hold on to a lead. But I think it was very impressive. I feel like you got to give credit to Coach Bill Self, because we were talking and texting during this game, and I said it didn't really feel like Kansas was leading that whole first half. I mean, the momentum felt like it was with North Carolina almost the entire game, especially when Darryn was out with foul trouble. But somehow Coach Self was able to hold on to that lead for most of the entire half.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it also just kind of started with the energy that they had early. Because, I mean, one thing that jumped out during the Louisville game, and I think early in this game, was like, they're going to be a physical team. But I think in the second half, some of the discipline defensively, I think, kind of opened the gates for the runs to happen. But I think defense is kind of what they're going to have to hang their hat on. And, I think for the first part of the game, that's why they were able to, jump out to such a big lead. And what I really like too is Darryn was making plays as well. I wasn't really as much on the ball, but like off the ball, I think he was a really active participant. And like, I think it's still early, so like that top three can kind of change. And like, depending how Koa Pete, I think he's actually playing right now, so I want to see that box score. But depending how Koa Pete looks, he could maybe get into some of that discussion. But I think the thing with Darryn is like he really is kind of a two-way talent. Like obviously he's so good at what he does offensively, but like he's really engaged defender. And part of those plays that they were making early, I think Darryn played a part in a lot of those. And like even going back to the Louisville game, like I think early on he kind of fell asleep on some plays, but then he kind of corrected it quickly, and like he was staying glued to cutters and things like that. I do want to see what he looks more like a little bit, when he is on the ball. And like today, I think he got into some early foul trouble, although one of the fouls I think was offensive. But like Darryn's really engaged as a defender, and I think that's just a good mindset to have from your star player and potential number one pick.
Yeah, he had a couple plays today, like a player had his back turned to him and he just came up from behind. Not exactly like Jose Alvarado. He wasn't hiding out of bounds, but like he would come up from behind and just poke it and get a couple steals that way. I mean, that's really all you need. If he's going to be an offensive juggernaut in the NBA, be a 20, 25 point per game scorer, if he can get you engaged defense and maybe like one steal a game at a minimum, you'll take that every day of the week if he's going to produce these massive offensive games. I think Jay Billis said it tonight on the broadcast. He wouldn't be shocked if Darryn scores 40 in a college game this year. He might do it multiple times from what we saw tonight. His offensive game, he didn't really even get it going. Seth Trimble was all over him. He barely had any separation all night long, and he still finished with over 20 points on efficient shooting. So I still feel like the sky is the limit for Darryn's offense, but yeah, his defense was impressive as well.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Is there anything else that you want to add, or you think we're good?
No, I think we're good. That was a really fun game to watch.
Yeah, so I think we're going to do some more of these as the season goes on, just kind of some reactions to big prospect games. I think there's probably another one, but I think the next major one that comes off the top of my head is the Kansas-Duke matchup in a week and a half. So it'll be fun to kind of reevaluate Kansas then, or and more specifically Darryn, and also get another look at Cam Boozer and just a highly ranked matchup. I'm really excited for this season, so I think we're going to get a lot of these matchups that are just really exciting to watch and that also have good prospects. So keep an eye on these going forward. Yeah, and if you like the video, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you guys later.